So myself, Ilan Cherian, so Chief Technical Officer at Comet Computer Private Limited, and my experience is over 20 years of experience with on-premises infrastructure and the cloud infrastructure, even on-premises infrastructure along with physical and virtual infrastructures. And also my specialized areas are uh, cloud infrastructure as well as security. Security includes information security, cyber security, and cyber forensics. And myself, certified ethical hacker, and also computer hacking forensic investigator, and also I'm a certified AC Council instructor and Citrix certified associate, and also Microsoft certified system administrator, and also IBM certified AX administrator. And now we'll move on to the uh, session. So in this session, we'll be understanding the general introduction about the cloud computing. So where we'll understand what is cloud computing and what are all the benefits of the cloud computing, and also we'll understand the uh, cloud deployment models. And after understanding the basics of the cloud, we'll also understand the we'll compare the on-premises and the cloud infrastructure. So after comparing the on-premises and cloud infrastructure, we'll move on to the demonstration. So where you can understand how the cloud resources are deployed and how the resources are managed. And finally, we'll also have a Q&A session. So where you can ask all of your doubts. So first of all, basically understanding about cloud computing. Uh, basically, we all know that this cloud computing is a computing method or a methodology where the public internet is going to be used. So where the cloud service provider is going to own the data center, and they will be providing us the resources where the customers can log on to the cloud service providers portal, and they can create the resources, whatever the resources they require, they can create from the cloud service providers portal. And also these resources can be made publicly available, or even you can secure or you can preserve your resources within your network also. And the publicly published applications or the servers that can be accessed from the uh, internet from anywhere from the globe. So since these resources are provided and the resources are available over the public internet, so that's why it is called as the cloud computing. And the whatever the resource we use from the cloud service providers data center, so we pay for the usage. So where there is not going to be any upfront investment is required for uh, running the data center or running your servers. And also the great thing about the cloud computing is you need not to invest a huge amount of money on purchasing the servers. And also this cloud computing will be reducing the running cost, data center running cost. So where most of the companies cost, the highest cost involved in running a business is the employee salary, and the second highest cost will be the running cost of the business. Running cost includes the power consumption, data center running cost, or the uh, cooling system. So all these things involved in the running cost of a data center. So where this cloud computing can reduce all these things. So since as I said earlier, there is no initial investment, where the customer can straight away log on to the service providers portal, and they can create whatever the resource they need, and they can use the resource and they can pay for the usage after 30 days. And also data center running cost or the data center maintenance cost is not involved. So even that is also a very big advantage even for the startup companies, so where they'll have the idea and also they'll have the concepts, but they might not have enough investment to run their business. So where this cloud infrastructure opens the gate for the startup companies to run their applications and to run their business. And also the another important thing about the cloud infrastructure is uh, you can just create the resources whenever required, and you can destroy the resources whenever not required. In even in on-premises infrastructure, most of the companies will be facing many challenges, which includes the uh, uh, time to the market. So the first challenge is the topmost challenge is the time to the market. Say if a company is planning to um, start a new business, say example they want to start a business for media streaming. So if the company decided and if they want to uh, run the media streaming application like Hotstar or Prime Videos, so the if the company has decided to launch a new project, they need to reach the customer as earliest possible before the competitor releases their product. So if it is a physical infrastructure, or if it is a on-premises data center, so procuring the servers, configuring the servers, testing the servers, and then putting into the production, obviously it will take a long time, the time consuming thing, and also a very challenging thing where we need highly skilled professionals to configure the resources. Say example, if they want to deploy a mail server, they need a email server specialist. If they want to maintain a database, so they need a database administrators. They want to maintain a storage, they need a storage administrator. So where the company requires more specialized professionals to handle these resources. But when it comes to the cloud infrastructure, since all the resources are going to be the virtual resources, the cloud computing, basically it runs on the virtual infrastructure. So where all the resources which is provided to the customers, it is going to be the virtual resource. Say example, if as a customer I need a Windows Server 2019 running with 4 processor and 32 GB of RAM. So for this capacity, the cloud service provider will give me a virtual machine. So where I can install whatever the application I need and I can configure it and I can use it as per my requirement. So since all the resources, you can name it a virtual machine or a storage or a security device, whatever you can name it. So all the resources are going to be the virtual resources. Since these resources are virtual resources, it is going to be very much easy to deploy, and also the deployment will be very much faster. So where as a customer, after deciding uh, if I want to create this much of servers, this much of storage, you can decide and then you can start implementing or you can start creating the resources. Within few minutes all your resources will be readily available for you. So this opens the gate for the uh, new businesses or business expansions. So whenever they require resource, they can add, or whenever they don't require the resource, they can immediately destroy the resources. So immediately the billing also stops. So this is a great advantage about the cloud computing. And also after the usage, after 30 days, the bill will get generated, and also you'll have 15 days to pay the bill payment. So based on the usage, so you can pay. So that's again a great thing about the cloud infrastructure. And in the cloud computing, there are different type of deployment models out there. So based on the uh, business needs, so these deployment models may vary. As a customer, it's our responsibility to choose the right deployment cloud deployment model for our business. So basically there are three cloud computing models out there: infrastructure as a service, platform as a service, and software as a service. Even not only three, there are a lot more services are there, a lot more cloud computing models are there, but out of all these three are the primary deployment models. So here we'll be initially understanding about the infrastructure as a service. So the name itself says infrastructure as a service. As a customer, I'm say I just want to run a software business where we are developing a software for our clients. So for developing the software, we need a few servers, maybe a file server, a web server, or a domain controller, or an application server, or a antivirus server, something like that. Some servers are required. So instead of having our own data center, purchasing the servers, and configuring all the servers as per our requirement. So in this case, the customer can depend on the cloud service provider, where the cloud service provider will provide us uh, the basic infrastructure which includes the physical servers. On top of the physical servers, the virtual infrastructure will be, that is hypervisor, will be deployed. And as a customer, we can create from the scratch, we can create all the resources from the scratch, as like if it in our on premises, where first of all we'll lay the structure cable. After laying the structure cable, we will install the devices like a hub or switch, and all the rest of the devices. And also we'll have a firewall for our security. And also we'll have servers. We will choose the configuration for the server. For a file server, what is the configuration required, what is the number of processor, what is the capacity of memory, or what is the number of hard disk, and what is the capacity of the hard disk required. So everything as a customer will be deciding in the physical infrastructure or the on premises infrastructure. Similarly, when it comes to the cloud infrastructure, so we should uh, create the network first of all, as like we lay our private care network inside our building. Similar like that in cloud also, we need to create our own network, which we call it as a cloud virtual network. So the first thing after uh, creating the cloud account, that is the maybe Azure account or AWS account or a Google account. After creating the account, you need to create your own network, so which we call it as a virtual network. So here in Azure, they call it as a VNet. So the first step is we need to create the virtual network. So while creating the virtual network, we need to define what IP range you are going to have, what is the number of subnets you are going to have, and how many subnets you are going to have. Everything as a customer we have to create and we have to configure that. After creating the network, we can create the virtual machines. So while creating the virtual machine, you can choose what operating system you want to install on top of that, and what should be the size of the virtual machine. It means what should be the capacity of the memory, and what should be the capacity of the processor, and what should be the capacity of the hard disk. So everything as a customer we need to decide and we need to configure. So in infrastructure as a service, only the base virtual infrastructure is provided to us. On top of that, whatever the resources required, so it may include the servers, storage, network, security, everything is going to be configured, created, configured, and managed by the customer itself. So which we call it as a infrastructure as a service. So this infrastructure as a service, we can compare with our on-premises data center. So instead of having our on-premises data center, we can have all the servers inside the cloud. So with the help of the infrastructure as a service. And speaking about the platform as a service, uh, for this platform as a service, we might not we need not to uh, create the network. We need not to create the virtual network, or we need not to size the network, or we need not to divide the network into subnets or something else. So this platform as a service is mostly helpful for the company where they own the application alone. Say example, if a company is running an e-commerce business, they have the e-commerce application with them, but for running this e-commerce application, they may require a web server. web server might be a Windows based web server or a Linux based web server. So if the web server is available, they can configure their application, they can install their application and they can configure their application. So in this case, if the company is already owning the application, in that case, they need not to create the uh, cloud infrastructure. They can just use the platform which is readily available and that is offered to the customers. That is the platform as a service. So where I can decide what platform I need. Say example, I need a Windows platform to run my application. I can choose a Windows platform with IIS, so that I can, after choosing the platform, I can give any name based on the requirement. I can give the name for my uh, web application or the website, and after that I can upload the web application. And after uploading the web application, I can configure my application based on my requirement, my business requirement, and the application can be immediately available to the customers within few minutes or within few hours. We can bring up our application and we can make it available immediately as early as possible for the customers. So that is the great thing about the platform as a service. So the important thing about the platform as a service is you need not to bother about the availability of the virtual machine, because that is going to be taken care by the service provider. So the service provider will ensure that the virtual machine is running for you, and the virtual machine operating system is regularly updated, and also the IIS service is running. So all these things will be ensured by the service provider. So as a customer, we have the responsibility, we have only less responsibility. That is only the configuration and management of the application alone is going to be taken care by the customer, and the rest of the things is going to be managed by the service provider itself. So that is the platform as a service. And speaking about software as a service, so in this case, as a customer, we need not to have any resources like software or hardware or anything else. So everything will be managed and everything will be available to the customer. So example, if for running my business, I need a an ERP application. So there are many cloud service provider companies where they offer the ERP software as a service. So I can just subscribe this software, whichever the ERP software I need to run my business. I can just subscribe that software and I can start using it. So they will give me the URL to log on to the ERP application. So using that, I can straight away log on to the application and I can start using it. So in this case, the 95% of the response, not 95%, even 99% of the responsibility is with the cloud service provider. So they will install and they will configure and they will maintain and they will ensure the availability of that ERP application. As a customer, my responsibility is just to log on to the application and use the application based on our requirement. So that is about the software as a service. And a very good example for the software as a service is this Yahoo Mail or a Gmail. So these are all email uh, web service, email web client as a service. So where we are using the emails through the web browsers. So that is one great example for the software as a service. So I believe we got a better understanding about the uh, uh, what is cloud and how this cloud infrastructure deployment models are working. If you have any questions or any doubts, you please let me know. Okay, so I consider there is no doubts from your point of view. Let me move on to the next stage. So where we'll be understanding the on-premises network, comparing with the Azure Cloud Network. So basically, in our on-premises network, we'll have a physical network. We'll have the cable, structure cable laid, and that will be connected with the hub or switch, and the internal network, the private network, will be connected with the firewall with the public internet. And in our on-premises, we'll have our production servers like the Active Directory domain controller, file server, application server, and also the database servers or more servers. And these production servers will be connected with the production user network, so where the end users will be using these services for their day-to-day activities. And also in on-premises we may have the hosting servers like web server, FTP server, email server, and terminal server. So these kind of servers we may have, but these servers should be accessed from the public internet, where these production servers need not to be accessed from the public internet. So these production servers should be accessed only from the internal network, that is only from the production user network. And these hosting servers should be accessed from the public internet. So based on the requirement, we can configure with the IP range. We may have a different IP range for the hosting servers, and we'll have a different IP range for the LAN network, that is the production server network. And also we'll have the required configurations done in the internal networking devices where the production users can access the production servers. And also, since the production servers or the business critical data, so where this data should not be accessible from the public internet. So in firewall, all the traffic from external network to the LAN network, so that will be disabled in the firewall. So none of the traffic will flow from the WAN network to the LAN network, so that your production servers and the data will be safe. And similarly, if the hosting servers are there in your network, so these hosting servers should be accessed from the public internet. So where in firewall we'll configure the firewall inbound rules, so which allows the respective services. So say example, if I have a web server, so this web server can be accessed from the public internet using the port 80. So even if it is configured with SSL, we can also use 443. So in the firewall, we'll configure the respective rules. So where this firewall can allow the respective traffic to the respective server. So this is how we'll have our on-premises network. So in this on-premises network, all the traffic or all the configurations is managed by the customer itself. So we can decide what which traffic should come inside your network or what traffic should go outside your network. So everything is under control. Similarly, this kind of controlled infrastructure we should be able to have in the cloud also. So when you are moving into the cloud, security should not be a question. So whatever the configurations or whatever the controls you have in your on-premises network, similar kind of control, similar kind of security, you should be able to achieve in the cloud infrastructure also. So the cloud service providers has built their infrastructure in such a way that the security is not compromised when moving into the cloud. So when comparing to the on-premises network, as we lay the structure cable and we connect the hub or switch to connect the devices, so we'll have our LAN network. Similar like our on-premises LAN network, in Azure Cloud, we have a network called virtual network or VNet. They call it as a VNet. So this VNet is nothing but a private network inside the cloud, as like your on-premises cabled network. So this is a virtual network inside the cloud, so where this network will be created by you, and also what should be the IP range used inside the virtual network, that is going to be decided by you. And also this CADR range 10.0.0.0/16 is a very big network where we can have 65,536 IPs. But this much of devices you need not to have in a single subnet. You can have multiple subnets based on your project's requirements. So something like you can have a public subnet or private subnet, or you can name or the subnet names you can decide based on the servers or based on the services you add to the respective subnet. You can give the names, and also you can decide what should be the IP range for the particular subnet. You can decide as like you decide in the on premises. Similarly, in cloud network also you can decide, so what is the number of subnets required, and what subnet is required, and what should be the size of the subnet. Everything as a customer you can decide. And also since this kind of servers are uh, uh, publicly hosted servers, so these servers can be accessed from the public internet based on the firewall configuration. So as like we have our physical firewall in cloud network, we'll have a firewall called a virtual firewall. So specifically speaking, there is an application firewall or a network firewall. Whatever the firewall you require, we can configure, and you can define this similar kind of rules. So what traffic should be allowed inbound and what traffic should be allowed outbound. So everything we can control as like you do with the physical firewall. So we can have the virtual firewall here. And coming to the private subnet computers, so by default these private subnet computers cannot be accessed from the production network. That is the production user network cannot access the private subnet computers, because there is no secured connection between the uh, cloud virtual network and the on premises network. So if in case if you want your production users should access the private subnet servers directly, so in that case we need to configure a VPN connection with the on-premises network. So after establishing the VPN configuration with the on-premises firewall to the Azure virtual network, so then this production network users will be able to access the cloud resources or the private subnet resources. So this is how we'll have our uh, setup in the cloud. So where we can have the our own. Now you can decide what is the number. Even you can have multiple virtual networks in a single subscription. You can have up to 100 virtual networks. So even you can have a virtual network to virtual network connectivity. All this configuration you can decide in what scenarios it is required, how it should be configured. So everything as a customer we can decide and we can configure. And I believe you got a better understanding about the uh, network comparison, cloud network and the on-premises network. If you have any questions on this, you can please let me know.
Sir, can we use
Little bit louder,
physical?
please.
Can we use physical firewall in this cloud computing?
From the customer end, we'll have the physical firewall, but in cloud end, we'll have a virtual firewall.
Okay. Okay.
Okay, and also even in a few cases, the cloud service provider also offers some additional services like usually the cloud infrastructure will be the shared infrastructure. If required, you can also go with the dedicated resources also. But mostly the dedicated resources will go only with the servers, not with the network or the security devices, because the security devices which the cloud service providers maintains will be more sophisticated than the firewall which we own in our own premises. Got it?
What is the name of firewall in cloud services in this one?
Uh, Okay, so here they have a different type of firewall services. Actually, they call it as a services. So there is a application layer firewall is there, and also network layer firewall is there, and also there is one more thing called network security group. So actually, network security group it is not exactly a firewall. It is actually a filter where we can define what traffic should be allowed inbound and what traffic should be allowed outbound. So that can be defined using the network security groups. Got it?
It is the same like Amazon.
Yes, yes, nearly same.
Then what is the difference between these tools, Azure and Amazon?
Okay, so basically Amazon is a different company and Azure is a different company. But comparing the product or the services, as like you compare a Maruti car and a Tata car. similar kind of difference. See, nearly these two service providers or most of the service providers have nearly a similar kind of configurations and similar kind of services, but there are there are some specific specializations. Say example, uh, when we speak about Azure, they are more good in the uh, identity and access management, because they provide a Azure Active Directory with on-premises Active Directory integration. And also, if for mailing service, they have Exchange Online, that is a very specialized service which is not comparable with the AWS. And even AWS also has few best services like AWS DynamoDB. Actually, AWS DynamoDB is a NoSQL based database engine where which can be accessed with a single digit latency globally. So, and also if you're looking for more Linux based deployments, so in that case, AWS is much suitable than Azure. Even in Azure also you can deploy Linux based virtual machines, but still AWS has more uh, uh, adaptability with the Linux based platforms. But when it comes to the Windows based platform, if you want to publish a web server, or if you want to host a domain controller or a file server, Windows based servers, so this Azure is a better option, better choice. So it's again, it is not that AWS is better or Azure is better. There are specific services which the particular service provider will be better. So as a customer, you can choose, first of all, what is your requirement, first of all, what service you need. For that particular service, which service provider gives us the better service, so based on that you can choose which service provider we need. But comparing with the price, comparing with the AWS, Azure is more even Microsoft says they are one third cost of the AWS, so they nearly offer a cheaper cloud solutions. Got it?
Thanks, sir. Thanks, sir.
You're welcome.
See, in Azure, in the
Hmm.
scenario what you have shown here,
Hmm.
okay, there is no any firewall. So how we are going to
No,
establish
no.
the
In
VPN?
the diagram, actually, I haven't mentioned here. So here too,
Mm.
we'll have the network security group.
Oh, okay. With the help of network security group, can we establish a site-to-site VPN?
No, for that we need to have a specific service. So for establishing site-to-site VPN, we need to add another service with additional
Virtual
cost.
firewall.
Even in AWS, also the same story.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Okay. See, this network security group, it is just a filter. It's a network filter. That's it. So it
No.
can filter only the traffic.
Here you have shown that communication between the production, on-premise production to the Azure network, okay, through
Yes.
VPN. So
Yes.
this VPN, how we are going to establish? That is my question.
On-premises firewall will have a VPN feature, and also in cloud, so that is in VNet also, we need to add a virtual gateway. We will first of all we'll add a virtual gateway, and then we'll add the VPN gateway. After adding the VPN gateway, we can establish the uh, VPN connection between the on-premises to the VPN gateway of the VNet.
Okay. So in this scenario, then VPN gateway is required. With the
Yes,
help of
exactly.
VPN gateway. Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions? Okay, fine. So I consider there is no more questions, so that we can move on to the next stage of a practical demo. So in this demo, actually here I have already, okay, I'll just share my screen. Yeah. So I have already created the Azure account, and as like AWS, Azure also gives us the free trial account for your practice or the testing environment. So, but they offer first month as a free service. They will offer you the $200 credit. So within the $200 limit, you can use the resources. So if your usage exceeds that, so the additional cost you have to pay. And the next 11 month after the first 30 days is getting over, before the subscription, the first 30 days was over on the 29th day or 30th day, you need to upgrade the free subscription to pay as you go model. So after upgrading to pay as you go model, for the next 11 month, again they will credit every month the $200. So within the $200, if your usage is there, so you will not to, you will not pay additionally. But if the resource utilization goes beyond that, you need to pay additionally. So these are the free subscription works. And also you can use all the services. There is no limitation within the $200 credit limit. You can use whatever the services you want. And for today's demonstration, I just want to show you the demo how to use a platform as a service. uh, I can say I have a web application. I'm owning the web application. I want to run this web application in the Azure Cloud's platform as a service. So that is web server as a service. So the service provider Azure will be providing us the web server. Maybe you can choose you need a Windows web server or a Linux web server. After choosing the web server platform, and you can create your app service. On top of that, you can upload your web content and you can configure it and you can start using it. So for web server as a platform as a service, Azure offers as a service called app services. I'll just create an app service here. So while creating an app service, you need to define, you can have you can group the resources. So for easy manageability, so already I have a demo group created. I'm just putting the resource in the group, and also this is the subscription which I have created in the Azure. So while creating any resource, you need to choose the subscription, and you need to choose the resource group in which you want to add the resource. And also here we need to define the web application name. Say for example, I want to give the web application name as Comet Lab. So this name should be globally unique name. So my web application will have a URL with the name cometlab.azurewebsites.net. So using this name, we can access this web application from anywhere. And also how you are going to publish, or you are going to publish the code or the Docker container. I'm going to publish the code. And also we can choose the runtime stack. I'm just selecting the .NET for my demonstration. And also you can choose the operating system platform. Either you need a Linux platform or a Windows platform. And again, you need to choose the region, that is the location where you want to create your resource. Because selecting the region is very much important, because every country has their own data privacy policies. So based on the country's data you are handling, so you need to choose the respective country or the region. Since this is the demo, I'm just leaving it as Central US. And also while creating the, as I said earlier, while creating a virtual machine, you need to select the CPU capacity, memory capacity, and storage capacity. So similar like that, you can also choose the capacity for your web application. So here you can choose what should be the capacity. That is, say example here, I'm saying ACU, that is Azure Compute Unit. For running my application, I need 420 ACU and 7 GB of RAM. Or if I want higher size, higher capacity, I can go with even bigger size. And also each app service will have its own feature with the custom domain names, and also auto scaling feature, and also the staging slots, daily backup feature, traffic manager. So based on your requirement, and you can see here it has a 20 to 250 GB of disk space. So based on your application's requirement, you can choose the size of the virtual machine or the size of the platform. So here I'm selecting the S1, which has 100 ACU and 1.75 GB of memory, and also it has a 50 GB of storage capacity with a daily backup of 10 times and staging slots up to 5 slots, and I can scale up to 10 instances with a custom domain with SSL. So based on your application's requirement, you can choose the capacity, and after selecting all the required things, you can just press review and create, so that the uh, web application platform will get created. And here you can notice the deployment is in progress. So what happens is, in the background, a virtual machine, Windows virtual machine will get deployed. The Windows virtual machine will be running with IIS. So immediately the web application will be ready for us, and you can immediately access the web application from the public internet, because while creating the app service, we given a name for the app service. So using the name, you can access this app service anywhere from the globe immediately. So the creation has been done. I'm going to the resource, and here you can notice this is the URL of the app service. We'll just try to access this URL, comatlab.azurewebsites.net, and this is the default page of the app service. As like after installing IIS, you'll have a default web page. Similar page is this, and since the app service is ready, we can upload the content, and we can start using this web application. And also, you'll not get any full console view. Full console view in the sense, as like in infrastructure as a service, you can have the full control of the virtual machine, but in platform as a service, you will not have the full control of the virtual machine. You'll be able to control or manage only the application alone. So that is the IIS related settings alone. If, for example, if I want to upload my web content, uh, you can just verify with a small command line console they offer us. So using which we can just verify we can execute few commands. Say example, if I want to list out the whatever the contents inside this folder. Even in Windows, you may know, if after installing IIS, you can see in C drive a folder will be created in the name of inetpub. Inside that, you can see the folder named www root. So similar kind of approach is this. So where this app service which we have launched now, so it is running its default this default page from this location. So it's taking some time. Okay, so usually it will not take much time, but currently it is taking time. Okay, no issue. So after creating the app service, what we can do is we can upload our web content to this location. For uploading the web content, we can use on here, you can see it has a file name hosting start.html. So this is the page which we are seeing here. Okay, so if I want to upload my web content, so using FTP, we can upload the web content. So the FTP URL also will be given here. So using the URL, you can see here. So this is the URL, FTP appwebsites.windows.net. So inside that, this is the location where the web content should be uploaded. And using this URL, you can upload the content, and also we need to configure the FTP deployment user account. So already I have configured the FTP deployment user account. So using this account, I'll try to upload the web content. So for uploading the web content, we can use any FTP client like FileZilla or Qt FTP or something like that. I'll just use the URL here. So, and the username I'll take from here. and the password which I already have configured this, and then connect. So you can notice there is a SSL warning is there. Okay, and also you can see the status retrieving the directory. Yeah, directory listing is successful. And also here you can notice the file name hosting start.html is showing here. And also in my local machine under E drive, I have a small web page. I can show you here. Under E drive, I have a folder. Inside that I have a test page. So this is the page I want to upload for testing. Okay, so currently I'll upload this particular file, and I'm just locating the same folder, and I'll just drag and drop the file. And here you can notice the file uploading process. You can see here. Yeah, so here you can notice the file has been uploaded. Even the same we can verify in the console also. In the Azure console also we can verify the same. And here now you can notice the file default.html is uploaded, and immediately you can see the response. So this is the content which we have uploaded. So this is how in few clicks we can host our web application in the Azure cloud. So this actually specifically someone asked about the difference between AWS and Azure. So for deploying this kind of web applications, so this Azure is a better choice. Okay, so I believe we got a understanding how to create the Azure resources. And if you have any doubts or any questions, you can please let me know.
From where we can get the password of the FTP server?
That we have to configure. Since before starting the demo, I have already configured this. Okay, so we will have the options to configure that
Can you explain, sir?
right now. Okay, just give me a moment. And here you can see deployment center. Under deployment center, you can find FTP. You can go to the FTP dashboard, and here you can set the user credentials. You can give the username and the password, and you can save the credentials. Got it?
Right, sir. Right, sir.
Okay. Any other questions?
So I have a question.
Yes,
So we are
please.
using platform as a service web app, right?
Mhm.
So how far this is secured in case if the URL has to be restricted to be used within the organization?
Okay, so this kind of see when it comes to the platform as a service, it immediately it is published into the public internet and it is available in the public internet. So this cannot be restricted only within your network. So if you have this kind of requirement where a particular URL should be available and that should be accessible only within your network, in that case, infrastructure as a service solution is the better solution. So even in that case, you can create a virtual machine in the cloud and you can configure whatever the application you want. And that application can be accessed from your private network users. So only from them, only from there they can access. So this kind of option you can go with if this is your requirement.
I see. Thanks.
You're welcome. Any other questions? Okay, fine. And here I have few questions. I want you people's can answer for these questions. Can anyone tell me what is scaling? Isn't there any answer? Okay, then let me answer. So scaling is basically say example, I'm running a web application currently. Where we have created a web application with 100 ACU, but later the number of user hitting my web application got increased. So where I require more CPU and more memory and more storage. So in that case, I can add additional resources. So that is we call it as a scaling up. After scaled up, but my number of user who is hitting my site went down. So later I want to reduce these resources. So that is we call it as a scaling down. So scaling is adding the resource. It might be adding the resource or reducing the resource. So that is basically scaling. And can anyone answer this question? What is IAM, Identity and Access Management? Is there anyone who can answer for this? Identity and access management. Even in on-premises also we might use this. Okay, let me answer. Yes, please.
Yeah, identity access management give the privilege to access the services.
So it gives the privilege to access the resources. Generally, when we speak about the on-premises infrastructure management, say there might be a firewall, and there will be a firewall administrator, or we may have a Cisco switch, and we may have a network administrator. If a company has 50 Cisco switches, all the 50 Cisco switches need not to have the user account for that particular network administrator. Even if you are creating the account for a network administrator in a Cisco switch, that is not a advised option, because creating account in all the devices and managing this is not going to be an easy task. So instead of that, we'll have a centralized identity and access management solution. So using that identity and access management solution, where we may also integrate with Active Directory. So using the Active Directory account, we can log on to the Cisco devices or the firewall or the Windows devices. So any devices you can log on with the same user account. So that is offered through this identity and access management. Because when it comes to the cloud infrastructure, so this IAM configuration also will play a major role. Okay, and also, can anyone answer this question? What is disk IOPS? Have you ever heard about this?
Disk inputs and outputs. How much disk inputs and outputs
Okay.
were directly to the physical disk?
Okay, great. So basically, when you're choosing the hard disk for your application, maybe if it is a file server or if it is a database server, so we need to consider the disk IOPS. Based on the disk IOPS, obviously, um, the disk IOPS plays a major role in performance of your application. That is input or output operations per second. So maybe if it is a database server where more IOPS is required, and if it is a file server, also we'll have to decide, or we need to have more disk IOPS. So in on-premises, we'll also have these calculations when creating the LUN in storage. While creating the LUN for a file server, or when creating LUN for a SQL server, we'll be considering this disk IOPS, and we'll be creating the LUN in appropriate storage pool. Similarly, in cloud also, while creating the virtual hard disk for the virtual machine, we need to consider the disk IOPS based on the application's requirement, and then we need to create the appropriate disk with the required disk IOPS.
Sir, I have a question that
Yes.
SSD and some clouds are providing
Mhm.
SSD and some priors normal hard disk.
Mhm.
What they are providing in the Azure?
Okay, see Azure or AWS or Google. So most of these top players offer us three type of devices, even magnetic HDD and provisioned IOPS to, HDD, or provisioned IOPS to SSD also. So all three kind of disk these three top players are offering. So while creating the disk, you can decide what kind of disk you want. Either you want a standard SSD disk, or IOPS or provisioned SSD disk, or even a magnetic disk also you can decide, you can share.
Right, sir. Right, sir.
Okay. And can anyone answer this question? What is API?
Is it application
It
program
is
interface?
application program interface.
Great. Application program interface. Can you brief more about that?
Like when there is a closed application, so other modules, when they want to interact with the another module,
Hmm.
it has to be done using the API technology.
Great, great. So one module can interact with the another module using this API. As like you may have a end user application. This end user application cannot directly interact with the hardware. So where the operating system will have the required API, so through which the end user application can interact with the hardware. Okay. And coming to the cloud infrastructure, so right now we have just logged on into the uh, Azure console, web console, and we have created the resources and we have managed. But in case you can also have your own uh, application developed for your own company. So through which you can manage the Azure resources. So where you can include the Azure API in your application. So through which you can manage the Azure resources using your custom applications. Okay. And can anyone answer this question? What is VLAN?
Sir, virtual LAN.
What
It's
is it?
a differentiate between different LANs
Mhm.
segments.
Okay. Why it is required?
It is used to segment different LANs inside the organization or switches.
Okay. Okay. And any other answer? Any other better answer?
Sir, when it comes to wireless networking, I think it is VLAN.
No, no. That is WLAN.
It's
Wireless network
it's
is
a
WLAN.
private network
Okay.
LAN. It's used to segregate the
See, VLAN is actually to split your physical network into multiple logical pieces, multiple logical networks. Because if you have your physical network with a single, that is without any VLAN, so there will be a more collision, traffic collisions will be there. And to isolate the traffic between say example, if my company have some 5 projects, so the traffic, one project's traffic should not affect another project. So where we'll have a virtual network that is VLANs created. So any traffic which is flowing from one VLAN, so the traffic will not affect the another VLAN. So where we can have the traffic isolation and the traffic security. So that is where we configure the VLANs. Okay. And can anyone answer for this question? What is stateful firewall?
Stateful firewall is the latest technology which all the firewalls are using. Right?
Okay.
The traffic flow
Hmm.
in stateful firewall, if the traffic is flowing out from the internal to external world,
Okay.
uh, the same traffic flow, it will take the same path actually, and it will maintain that stateful table.
Okay.
Through that, actually, it will not. There is no requirement for in detail. Actually, we need to create access list in the firewall. Okay.
Mhm.
So in normal non-stateful firewall, it will be have a 2 access list for incoming and outgoing traffic. In
Oh, that's
stateful
great.
firewall, in stateful firewall, we can have only one rule.
Okay. So in case of a stateless firewall, if my internal user need to access the external websites, so where we need to configure rule for outbound traffic as well as the response traffic also. So if it is a stateful firewall, you can just configure the outbound traffic alone. The response packet is automatically allowed. So that is about the stateful firewall. So where you need not to configure the additional inbound rule for the web access. Okay, great. And ADFS, can anyone answer for this? What is ADFS?
Distributed file system and advanced
No, no, no,
distributed
no,
file system.
no.
It's Active Directory Federation Service.
It's Active Directory Federation Service. Great. Can you brief more?
No, I
Okay,
not in
okay,
detail.
okay.
Actually.
So this is actually
For
provide.
single sign-on users, no? Like
Yeah,
what we are using in for authentication of users in the.
great, great. For single sign-on and for federated authentication. Federated authentication, in the sense, say I'm a company who is owning the application, and my partner users should log on to my application using their user account. So in that case, because if for my partner users, I will not create user account in my server. So my partner users will be using their own domain user accounts to access my application. So in that case, this federation service is required. So which offers the federated authentication between multiple domains. So and also we
So
can
then how this will work?
the federation trust will be created between the partner domain and my domain. So after creation of this federation trust, so the authentication token is passed from my uh, application to the partner domain, and the partner domain will authenticate the user, and the token will be given back. The authenticated token will be given back to the application. So where the application will provide access to the user.
Right, sir.
So
Thank you.
you're welcome. And can anyone answer me? What is the file system used by Windows file server? So in Windows, we create a shared
NTF,
folder. So using
NTF,
what file system? Yeah, sorry.
NTFS, right?
NTFS is a file system used to store the data in the disk. But the question is, file system used in the network. I'm creating a shared folder. This shared folder should be accessed from the network computer. So what file system is going to be used here?
DFS.
Or what protocol is going to be used here?
NetBIOS.
No, that is a naming convention. It is CIFS, Common Internet File System. So this is the file system used to access the Windows-based shared folders. And what is the file system used by Linux or Unix file servers?
EXT3, that's
It is NFS, Network File System. So when you're
Sir, kindly repeat for what is the name for Windows file server? Kindly repeat, sir.
CIFS, Common Internet File System.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And for Unix, it is NFS, Network File System. And can anyone explain me about file level storage and block level storage? Any answers?
Is it related to blog container storages?
Blob containers, I think you're more relating with Azure alone, but this
Yeah.
is actually a common term, file level storage and block level storage. So if it is I believe you all know how the data is stored in the hard disk. In the hard disk, the data are stored in the
right.
tracks and sectors, that is in the clusters. So if I'm saving a file of 1 MB, so this 1 MB file may occupy some 3 clusters. If it is a block level storage, if I'm making any change to the file, the whatever the change I'm making, that particular change in hard disk, in clusters, in which cluster the data is stored, only that cluster is overwritten. But in case of file level storage, all the clusters of the file will be overwritten. So that is the file level storage. So in a block level storage, only the particular block or only the particular cluster will be overwritten. But in a file level storage, all the clusters of that particular file will be overwritten. So that is the difference between file level storage and block level storage. So mostly your hard disk is a block level storage. A LUN provided from a sandbox, that is a file level storage. And speaking about NAS storage, file shares, these are all um, um, file level storages.
Sir,
Okay,
it is
so
an
these are all
important
the
thing
actually
how
these are all the
how this
terms
is
or the
controlled.
terminologies which will be widely uh, uh, again you need to have a good knowledge and also the exposure towards all these concepts when you are moving into the cloud. Sorry, someone were trying to interrupt, please.
Sir, how this thing is a very important thing. File level and blocks level storage. How this can be controlled in cloud networks?
Yeah, that we'll discuss actually, but while because of before discussing this, we need to discuss a few more concepts. So after understanding those things, we'll come to know when we can use file level storage or when we can use the block level storage. Okay, so in our upcoming course module, we'll be discussing on that.
Right, sir. Right, sir.
Okay, any other questions?
Is it possible to have a block level storage in LUN?
Obviously, the LUN by default it is a block level storage.
Okay.
Okay, LUN and hard disk both are block level storage. Got it?
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, any more questions? Okay, so I consider there is no more questions. And also, thank you all for attending this session. So we'll wind up the session right here. Thank you all.
Thank you, sir.